Good day, ladies, and welcome to this first module in our online course on Introduction to Strategic Planning. My name is Professor Sambaba Ademuchende, and I will be taking you on the Introduction to Strategic Planning. This model is divided into 3 units. Unit 1 is the definition. When we talk about definition, we want you to understand what we mean by strategic planning. Unit 2 will focus on the importance of strategy planning. And lastly, Unit 3 will deal with overview of strategy planning. At the end of this model, participants will be able to understand the importance of strategic planning and the role in achieving organizational goals and objectives. 2, explain a simple strategy that can drive organization to success. Let's begin with Unit 1 and understand the introduction of strategic planning and its role in achieving organizational goals and objectives. Learning objectives in Unit 1 is further subdivided into major outlines, which are introduction to strategic planning and the objectives of strategic planning. Definition of strategic planning. We'll move right into the first unit in the model 1, which is the definition of strategic planning. Impliedly, when we're talking about definition of strategic planning, we want participants to understand why we have what we call strategic planning. Because like the name implies, we discover strategic planning is looking right into the future. One of the main duties of managers is to determine the desired direction. Impliedly, any organization that is being set up has goals and objectives. The objective spells out what it intends to achieve. And if you now look at what it intends to achieve, you need to set a direction. The direction means to achieve a particular success within the organization. That is, here is where we are now, and where do we want to be in future? What are the steps we will take in order to achieve that? Organizations, particularly smaller ones, need a planning process, whether formal or informal. Even in the family, you need to plan. You need to know where you are. And of course, you need to know where you want to be in some years to come. That is why we call it strategy. Organizations, managers always adhere to a structured planning framework. And the organization or company established fundamental mission. When we talk about fundamental mission, it means what does the organization intend to achieve? For instance, a fundamental mission in organizing this online training is to now give participants an idea so that wherever they are, they can easily plan. And for them to plan, there has to be what we call formal objectives and plans. Formal objectives and plans in order to execute it. When we talk about execute it, in order to see how you can achieve it. Again, planning is a managerial responsibility. Planning, a managerial responsibility. Whatever you intend to do, you must start with planning. Even your homes, if you want to get results, you must start with what? Planning. And when we are talking about planning, so this is where we are, and these are the steps we want to take in order to go to where we want to go. And that is why we said managerial responsibility entails establishing objectives and determining the most effective approach to accomplish them. On the other hand, strategy, take note of that now. After planning, let's look at strategy. Strategy refers to a chosen path or a roadmap to achieve whatever objective you have set. Strategy, whatever you intend to achieve, there has to be a roadmap on how to achieve that. For instance, here, we have to put so many planning processes in place so that we can deliver and get you the best lectures on what we understand by strategic planning. Impliedly, therefore, strategic planning is the process within an organization where the strategy or direction is defined and decisions are made regarding the allocation of limited resources. Now, what do we mean by that? We're now trying to say every organization, for it to achieve what it has in mind, must look at its resources. And resources are limited. Resources are limited. Because resources are limited, we have to decide on different types of means using our limited resources in order to achieve that. And that is why in strategic planning or in strategy, we first look at what we call financial management. We must look at what we call what? Financial management. Financial management is that component or that path that now uses how you allocate resources based on your priorities. Remember, we said every organization, both formal and informal, even in the family, your resources are what? Scarce. And since your resources are scarce and you are planning strategy on how to achieve your goals, you must arrange things in order of priorities. When we talk about arranging things in order of priorities, you arrange them in such a way that you now make a financial decision to see, one, how you can acquire the funds, two, utilize them effectively in order to achieve the overall goals of the company or organization. That's where strategic planning comes in. Therefore, what is strategic planning? Strategic planning involves the process of establishing objectives and devising strategies to accomplish those objectives. Impliedly, for you to even start anything, you must first establish what? Objectives. These are the things I intend to achieve. And therefore, why do you bring in a strategy? You want to look right into the future. Right into the future. That's why we said a strategy is a long-term plan of action. Long-term plan of action that is designed to achieve a specific goal. That's designed to achieve a specific goal. Remember, we started by saying before you even formulate a strategy, you must set up your objectives. And once you set up your objectives, you must set goals that will now distinct you from the immediate actions or tactics that will utilize available resources. Again, if you remember, I told you at the beginning that what? Resources are scarce. And since resources are scarce, you need to plan. And if you are planning, there has to be a strategy. A strategy enables you now to look right into the future. A strategic plan, therefore, should incorporate the thoughts, emotion, ideas, and the desires of the individuals involved. Because for you to accomplish all these objectives, remember, any organization gets resolved through people. You cannot work on your own. For us to start all these online lectures, the management sat down to plan. These are that number one, these are missions, these are objectives, and these are the ways we will set up goals to ensure that in the long run, we achieve the mission. Let me emphasize one thing. What do you understand by mission? The purpose of your existence. It means every organization that is being established has a purpose for existing. When we talk about the purpose of your existence, what do you intend to achieve in the long run? That is in future. Like the mission of this particular organization is to see how we can empower women, to show women that, look, you have all what it takes to manage your limited resources. And if you are managing your limited resources, in order to get result, you must, one, set up your objectives, and then set goals, because the goals will now show you if you are actually moving in the rightful direction, Impliedly, therefore, creating a comprehensive plan. When we talk about comprehensive plan, you don't just look at where you are now. You need to have a comprehensive plan and say, this is where I want to be in 1 year to come. This is where I want to be in 2 years to come. This is where I want to be in 5 years to come. And this is where I want to be in 10 years to come, using our limited resources. And that is why we said in every organization, either formal or informal, we have what we call leaders. The leaders are the people that are responsible in preparing the objectives and setting up the goals on how we can achieve whatever plans we have in mind. However, in many cases, implementing the plans tends to be more challenging than in developing the plans. You see, once you have a plan, you've stated it out, this is our mission, this is what we intend to achieve, you must formulate a plan. And the plan must be strategic so that it will be comprehensive, not just short term, but looking at short term, medium term, and long term strategy, futuristic. That's why we say, look, when you're talking about strategy, you must, number one, focus on the future. It is designed to help an organization now look right into the future by taking what we call proactive approach. What do we mean by proactive approach? You are looking right into the future and say, oh, at the end of this program, for instance, yes, I'm preparing myself to be a human leader, and what are the plans that I need to put in place? First year, I'll start with the certificate course. When I master the certificate course, I'll come back again to look at what? The diploma course. So when you are planning anything, you don't just look at your immediate. You focus on the future. Or focus on the future. And when you are focusing on the future, you discovered one basic thing. The only permanent thing in life is what? Change. So you have to be aware that there's likely going to be a change. If it were in the past, we will now ask you to camp and sit in a classroom. You can imagine, but sit in the classroom. You can imagine the inconvenience it may take you to travel, get accommodation, and stay in the classroom. But now we've planned a strategy. And then we said, this is how we intend to achieve it. And for us to achieve it, the manager must set up objectives. Organizations that manage strategically need to interact with different people in the environment. When you are talking of strategy, you see, you have to relate it to the environment. How are you now relating it to the environment? Because the external environment, when we talk about external environment, you discovered whatever your organization is just a subset existing within a wider environment. Many of us, when we were planning to take off some of these things, we never knew there would be a series of changes in government, like 1, increase in petrol prices, 2, increase in the cost of production, 3, increase in whatever activities we are doing. And these are what we call uncontrollable, because the external environment is strictly uncontrollable. There are bound to be changes. And if there are changes within the external environment, for you to plan your goals and realize your vision, you have to be action-oriented. What do you mean by action-oriented? So if things happen this way, I must adapt myself to the environment and see how I can make changes. Because remember, I said the external environment activities there are uncontrollable. What are some of the activities in the external environment? For instance, inflation. When there's inflation, you must now see how you adapt your organization to it. Cost of living. When there are changes in cost of living, you must now refocus your strategy and see how you meet up with the what? Cost of living. Now, I want us to draw attention and look at how we can use our resources in the most perfect way. In the most perfect way. Because the way you use your resources will determine whether your organization succeed or it will fail. Whether your organization succeeds or it will what? Fail. Because resources tends to be paramount. And when we're talking about resources, it's not just financial resources. No. Both human, these are the human beings, and of course, the non-human resources. Because you must now see how you can coordinate these two in order to get results. Impliedly, therefore, we place greater emphasis on formation. That is when you form the strategy. And of course, we also place emphasis on what? Maintenance. How we can maintain all these things. And in the long run, we want to now see how we can bring about all the individuals. That's why we call it what? Collection of individuals and organizations to work towards common goals. Remember, let me emphasize on that again. I said, in organization, you get your result through human and non-human resources. And there's a need you coordinate both the human and non-human resources. Because the human resources, they are the ones that we implement the planning process. We are now trying to teach them, set up goals. Management have done all their planning, but we need the human resources, the specialists in this place, to see how we can come out and get our result. Strategic planning methods can now be categorized as either bottom up or top down. Bottom up approach or top down approach. What do we mean by the bottom up approach? when we are looking at the bottom-up approach, your workers, which you now as a leader or manager, as you call employees, will first and foremost put up their proposal. Let me bring it back to the home front that you understand simply. If we're using the bottom-up approach, the madam of the house, the domestic manager of the house, will sit along with the workers in the house and said, let's come up with the best approach of how we can achieve this. So the planning now starts at the bottom. They sit down and lay down their plans. Because they are the ones that will get the result. I give you a simple example. If we're using a bottom-up approach, we have to come back and meet the employees, for instance, in this organization, and ask them what is the best way we can achieve this. What is the best way we can achieve this? We want an online teaching that will go all over the world. So what becomes the best way? Come out with your financial planning that will enable us achieve this. And this is commonly achieved through what we now call capital budgeting process. I repeat, capital budgeting process. Because before you start anything, you must have a capital budget. Things that once you buy them and put them on ground, it takes a long time. You continue to use them. It will only be depreciating. When I say depreciating, it will only be reducing in value. It will only be reducing in what? Value. So we try to now look at an investment or a cost-benefit analysis. What do we mean by cost-benefit analysis? In whatever you want to achieve, there are different ways of achieving it. Different ways. And if you are to achieve the different ways, you look at the various methods and say which one will have minimal cost, that is less cost, and then still be beneficial to the system. On the other hand, the top-down approach, top-down. You see, in an organizational hierarchy, it moves from the top down. It involves the CEO, that is the Chief Executive Officer. Now, if you set up your business, even if it is a one-man business or a partnership, that is partnership when you come together, two of you, and say, these are the things we want to achieve, this is our mission, you must appoint a CEO. And the CEO, possibly with the support of the strategic planning team, will determine the overall direction that the company should pursue. Overall direction that the company should pursue. Remember, bottom-up strategy, it starts from the bottom up. And top-down strategy, it starts with the chief executive sitting with management and say, okay, this is our mission. Mission means why we are in existence. And while we are in existence, this is the way we want to achieve it. Strategy. For us to achieve it, we must now set up objectives. And when we set up the objectives, we must relate it to the environment. Remember I said, the environment is static, it's always changing. So anything that happens outside your environment, what we call internal environment, is what we now call your what? External environment. So with the top-down strategic planning, you'll discover that it's always more suitable for firms, when we talk about firms, organizations that are operating in an unstable environment. Because the environment is very unstable, top management must think. They try to think outside the box and say, this is the way we can achieve it. Alternatively, some organizations adopt what we call a concurrent strategic planning approach. Concurrent strategic planning approach, concurrently, where individuals within the organization will now sit down, bring out their plans. When they now bring out their plans, they will now give out their plans and see how their plans will meet up with the overall mission. So regardless of whichever method you are using, remember the number one step is the mission. The mission spells out why you are in existence. And when you're looking at why you are in existence, you say, okay, this is what I want to do. And if this is what I want to do, I need to plan a strategy that will be continuous, not a strategy that will stop in 1 year, no, 2 years, no, 3 years, no, 5 years, 10 years to come, 15 years to come, 20 years to come, so that activities in the organization can have that sense of continuity. Impliedly, therefore, strategic planning addresses 4 major questions. Take note, 4 major questions. Number 1, where is the organization now? Number 2, where does it want to be in the future? Number 3, how will it get there? Number 4, how will its progress be measured? How will its progress be measured? It's very important. And that brings us to the end of the first unit. Thank you very much for your wonderful listening. Therefore, welcome to Unit 2. In this unit, we shall be looking at the importance of strategic planning. At the end of this unit, participants will be able to discuss the importance of strategic planning. That is, why must we even embark on strategic planning? To appreciate the importance of strategic planning, it is necessary to understand how it is structured. How it is structured. You know, when you want to build a house or do anything, there must be a structure. How you follow it up. Strategic planning is a structured procedure aimed at defining long-term goals and objectives. Take note, long-term goals and what? Objectives. It means you are not just interested in where you are now. You want to answer basic questions. Where do you want to be in future? It serves as a valuable tool for establishing priorities and making well-informed decisions regarding the future. Establishing priorities and making well-informed decisions regarding the future. With this, management techniques involves, take note, involves you looking at your strength. Well, every organization, every individual, every business has its strengths. When we talk about your strengths, what you can do very well. And of course, your weaknesses. Every organization has weaknesses. For instance, your strength. You have a beautiful structure. You have all the necessary equipment. But then you have challenges. What are the challenges? You don't have competent hands, people that will manage the structure for you. So what are your weaknesses? What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? When we talk about your strength, things that you can easily do to enable you to achieve your objectives. When we talk about your weaknesses, what are the challenges that you need to overcome in order to achieve that vision you have in mind for your future? Strategic planning primarily concentrates on the organization's long-term objectives. Organization long-term objectives. That is, you setting up objectives to where you want to be in 5 years to come, 10 years to come, 15 years to come, 20 years to come. Why is it necessary? So that there can always be continuity. So that it can always be what? Continuity. And that boils down with you evaluating your capacity in order to achieve your objectives. Analyzing your environmental factors, the environmental factors that can easily affect your strengths, and then preparing, that's what we mean by propelled, preparing the organization to look forward. Strategic planning, therefore, enables organizations to anticipate. We talk of anticipate. You see now, you say, oh, in 5 years to come, these are the likely things that will happen in my organization. And proactively, looking right into the future, prepare for likely future events. Prepare for likely future events by engaging in strategic planning companies can identify and address potential unfavorable circumstances before they even arise. Because there must be unfavorable circumstances. So you must prepare for it. So what becomes the significance? We'll talk about the significance, the importance of strategic planning. Strategic planning lies in the ability to provide clarity of direction and path for the organization. There has to be clarity. Everybody in the organization wants to know where they are going, how they can get there, and how to achieve it. Typically, it is the leaders within the organization who undertake strategic planning to now start the course of action that will take them to the future. And that's why you discover in almost all organizations, we say the success or failure of the organization depends on the leaders. That's why in so many organizations, you say, why are they paying leaders higher than the employees that are actually doing the work? Because the leaders are the one thinking and planning strategically to see that the organization's success is of utmost importance, to ensure that there is now an alignment of your strategic plan, and it is crucial to make sure that alignment meets up with the company's objectives that you get from your mission. Company objectives that you get from your mission. And it's very suitable for your business. Very, very suitable. Because when you don't plan to anticipate what happens in the future, it will mean whatever you are doing is through trial and error. Trial and error. It is essential to now bear in mind a few key questions when you are planning all these things. The goals should be measurable. Measurable. For instance, if you are moving now from Abuja or from Wuse to Nyanya, let's assume it is 15 kilometers to Nyanya. You will always see your goals. When you cover 1 kilometer, the next time they'll say 14 more kilometers. You cover another, there's 13, 12, 11, 10, until you get to your final destination. So the goals must be measurable. It has to be measurable. If it's not measurable, how do you know that you are moving towards your goal? They should also be realistic, taking into account the resources and capabilities of your business. The resources and capabilities of your business. You cannot now start a small business and say, you want to buy a car of 40 million in 5 years' time. Do you have the capacity? So your goals must be related to your capacity. You don't give your employees unrealistic goals. Is it what they can achieve? Is it what they can achieve? And not just achievable, it is important to establish a clear and dedicated chain of communication. That's why in every organization, you have what we call an organizational structure, so that they can be clear. If you're trying to communicate within the organization, you know who is responsible to answering your problems. Who is your boss? Clarity is very important, and you must track your progress towards meeting such goals. So you see, The importance of what? Strategic planning and strategic management. It clearly shows where you want to go by setting up goals to meet up with your objectives. And we say when you are doing that, you use what we call the SMART principle. What do we understand by the SMART principle? One, your goals must be specific so that your employees will clearly know what you intend to achieve. S. And it must be measurable. They can now measure their what? Progress. Progress. Measurable. And it has to be what? Achievable. What do we mean by it being achievable? Is it something that you have the resources, what we call organizational capabilities? What do you understand by organizational capabilities? Do you have the finance? Do you have the workers that do the work? Do you have the production machinery? Do you have the market? And can you manage it? Can you manage it? And -8 being achievable. There has to be a time bound. That's why we call it what? Strategic. At the end of 1 year, this is what I want to achieve. Then you measure your progress. At the end of 2 years, this is what I want to achieve. At the end of 3 years, this is what I want to achieve. But here, it's not measurable, and you've not clearly communicated to the employees. You give somebody an assignment, what he can do in 1 year, it can equally take what? 5 years to do it. So we'll end up saying what? He can do it very well. It means he's effective, but he's not efficient. And it gives a line of communication so that everybody coming to the organization knows his role and know who is responsible to doing whatever they are doing, so that there'll be unity of purpose in the organization. Once again, thank you very much. Welcome back to Unit 3. We'll look at an overview of strategic planning. In this unit, you will be dealing solely with the general overview of strategic planning. At the end of this session, participants will be able to understand the concept of strategic planning. You see, we were picking you gradually. Now, after laying a solid foundation and you have an idea of what strategic planning is all about. So let us now look at strategic planning. Strategic planning is a process through which an organization leaders articulate their vision. That's why we say the success or failure of an organization lies with the leaders, lies with the manager. Just like the success or failure of a house lies with the woman in charge of the house. Because you must be the one to now anticipate vision for the future and determine the goals and objectives that will guide the organization towards that vision. You have a vision. You want to now articulate and see how you can guide the employees in the organization towards actualizing. When we talk of actualizing, that is towards achieving the vision. This process also involves, again, establishing priorities. Look at the sequence. Because remember we said organizational resources are what? Scarce. So if they are scarce, using your limited resources, you must arrange priority and see how it can be achieved. Setting up goals to be determined in order to realize the stated vision. Well, strategic planning is often portrayed as a link that will link the organization towards moving in a progressive way. It is important to recognize that it requires, take note, it requires one, continuous learning approach. You must continually learn the changes that are coming within the environment because you are looking right into the future. And the external environment is always changing. Drawing insight from both the past successes and future challenges. You see, that's why we always encourage people, even in the family, if you're planning how to move with your family and manage your family in the next 5-10 years, try to keep a record that you can register your successes. And of course, the challenges. Impliedly, therefore, strategic planning is the organizational process of establishing its strategy or direction and making resource allocation decision. That's why we say arrange your priorities. So you now see how you can allocate the resources because the resources are scarce and it is a holistic thing. Because in every organization, every unit or what we call department in the organization is very important. They all come with their requests. You meet on the request through what? Resources, but you have to arrange your resources in such a way that you can make decisions in order to pursue your strategy. And remember, I told you in the first unit, that both its capital and human resources must be coordinated. Because to achieve your strategy, you link up human and non-human resources, which we call your what? Capital. Several business analysis techniques can always be employed in strategic planning. And the easiest one you can use at your own level is what we call SWOT analysis. SWOT, SWOT analysis, which stands for what? Strength. Every of your strength has what? An opportunity. Weaknesses. Every of your other weaknesses is more like a threat. Another method we use in order to embark on strategic planning is what we call the PEST, P-E-S-T. And what does that mean? You have to consider the political environment, which is external environment, the economic environment, the social and technological environment. Because you see, technology, things are always changing. Things are always changing. And if you don't meet up with technology, it becomes your major constraint. Your competitors that meet up with technology will overtake you because the environment is so constantly changing. Look at now, we are seated here in Abuja, lecturing you all over the world. Courtesy of what? Technology. So if our competitors say, oh, we are not ready to use technology, they cannot move forward. They can't. And of course, the next one you can use what you call the STEER analysis. It takes into account social-cultural, because every environment has its own culture, the way of doing things. The way of doing things. You must look at their social-cultural, technological, economic, and of course, ecological. You see, things are always changing. The environment is changing. Look at, we're in October in Abuja here, there's still heavy rain. Ecological. So you cannot say, oh, you can do without looking at your environment. No. Your environment is very sensitive. And of course, the regulatory aspect. We have a body that always regulates our activities. And again, we may decide to do the analysis based on one, the environment, political, information, social, technological, economic, legal, and of course, spiritual dimensions. Let's look at the spiritual dimensions. You may be operating, let's speak for example, you have a church, you're operating in Nigeria. The legal aspect said, no, church, you are there to preach and give welfare to the people, so you should not pay taxes. But you move to other countries like in US, UK, and other developed world, they'll say, no, you must equally pay taxes. So if you don't pay, they take you to court, the legal aspect. So what are we trying to say? At every point when you are embarking on strategic planning, it is very, very important to look at all these dimensions, which we call the external environment, that are beyond your control. Beyond your control. All strategic planning, therefore, deals with at least one of three key questions. One of three key questions. What do we do in order to go to where we want to be? For whom do we do it? It has to relate with your mission. How do we excel? because there's competition in whatever you are doing. So that's why we talk of it, continuous learning. You must learn how your competitors are doing things so that you can now come back and see how you will what? Re-strategize. Re-strategize. And how can we now beat or avoid competition? But you can't avoid competition. But you can only manipulate, because the competition will always be there. When organizations set up to do anything, after planning all their strategic plans, you discovered one bit that now is regarded as a what? A process to establish the future direction of the organization for a period of 1 year or more. Commonly, we talk of it in relation to what? 3 to 5 years. But within these 3 to 5 years after planning, you discover the environment is changing. It may be legal in terms of the law. It may be cultural in terms of culture, because the world now ends up with what we call globalization. It may be social. And of course, it may even be the political. Very impressively, it may be technology. Because at every point, organizations are thinking how they can use technology in order to achieve their future desired. And that's why we said the organization must have what? Clear understanding of its current position. Then define its desired destination. This is your current position. Where do you want to be in a year's time? Where do you want to be in 2 years' time? Where do you want to be in 3 years' time? Where do you want to be in 5 years' time? Then when you now do that, you come out with a process that is now documented as the strategic plan. Strategic plan. Strategic planning can be a valuable tool of determining the course, the direction the company uses in order to reach its destination by accurately predicting the future, anticipate the challenges that may arise. And that is why you discover when you are embarking on strategic planning, there has to be strategic innovation, the ability to adapt to new ways of doing things. Because like we said, the environment is constantly changing. So you must adapt. You have to innovate and think what becomes the best way of doing things. Make sure you take the practice test, and should you have any concern, kindly revisit the model again. Kindly revisit the model again, because that gives you an overview of strategic planning and what it entails in order to adapt your own organization to a changing environment, because the environment is what? Dynamic. Thank you very much.